Happy Sunday to you. My apologies. Well, I'm glad you've been listening of me. Now you got me in live in person in here. Want to thank Renee and Pastor Hobbs for starting the show. I got confused with the time, but I'm here now. So this is not edited. This is really me. So God bless you. Happy Sunday to you all. And I will be on from 3 to 4 clock, so I got an extra hour. So God bless everyone for that opportunity to be on an extra hour. What a blessing. What a blessing. I'm coming from far away, but no excuse to that. No excuse. But I enjoyed the beautiful day. And I'm going to be here every fourth Sunday from 3 to 4 o'clock. And and faith and works. And if I say we must be active in the things of God, we got to get outside our comfort zone. I'm going to come here every fourth Sunday of the month from 3 to 4 o'clock to tell you that we need to rise up in the name of Jesus. Rise up in the name of Jesus. And I'm glad you were listening a little bit of me. I sounded pretty good. I was kind of listening here too. I'm like, I know it's good stuff, Pastor Howard. I'm like, well, let's just keep on playing. I'm like, what was I saying about that? That sounded good, Jackie. Amen. So, however, right, I'm here. So let me speak. So why do I do this? I'm gonna always introduce what we're about. Morality moves, and the Lord gave me that. I thought that was so awesome. What morality moves, not morality sits. Bible says faith and works. Show me your faith by what? By your works, right? Abraham believed God. It was counted for righteousness. Abraham left. So it's what you do. It's always what you do. So morality is always going to move. It's not going to just be a concept, a thought, but it's actions behind that. So morality moves is always going to be the fourth Sunday of the month from 3 to 4 o'clock. And we're going to talk about ways that we can move in society. And also, too, I'm going to tell you about individuals that have moved in society as well. Individuals that also moved in society and has been an excellent representation for us to move. I will always remind us that we are living in the microwave generation. We're living in a time that comfort and ease is second nature, and to go outside your comfort zone, the flesh doesn't want to do it. However, let us never be amiss to know that it's always going outside your comfort zone that you're going to find God's will. It's never going to be in the easiness. It's always going to be a sacrifice. My dad, he said nothing good comes easy, and everything good comes with a sacrifice. So we got to stand up and stand out against the works of the devil. And I stand up and stand out in the realms of entertainment, in the realms of how young women and young men are portrayed in the music lyrics and videos and in the media, which is all a lie of the devil. So that's a lengthy introduction, and I'll always start again with the introduction. Today I'm going to preface it with bringing up a specific music that perhaps people are talking about, and I think that's something that I also wanted to talk about as well. But however, before I go into that, I think I am still going to go back to people who have stood up for righteousness. And I think we still need to be reminded. We'll always still need to be reminded about our history of what people have done, what they've sacrificed, what they gave up for that next generation. And I think I have to always remind us, I'm reminding myself as well, that what we do, we're either planting seeds of righteousness or unrighteousness. And we're trying to also shine the light, like I always say. That that we are the Bible says that we are the light of the world, and we must shine our light, and we're also the salt of the world. So what does light need to do? I always say, what does light need to do against darkness? You just turn on the light. You go to the room and you turn on the light. So what does that mean? You show up. And as I come here to Boston Praise Radio and TV, this is light in the community. So we are here. I'm thankful for this ministry, because it's a great place for me to talk about Morality Moves, because we're showing light in the light in darkness. I want to start back with, again, we got a lot here. We have phone on our hands, little computer, and it's just accelerating. I came here by car. I didn't walk. I didn't take the I didn't take the boat, right, or a camel, right? No, not really. And my ride was probably like an hour, 15 minutes, something like that. And so how'd I come? Comfortable car, AC, just looking at everything. And we got a phone in our hands. We got microwave. We got all these things. And, sometimes I think, how am I using all of that for the Lord? How am I using this time that I'm living in now with all the ease and comfort? How am I using that to give back to God, to give back how the life I'm living? And I got to be reminded of the time that, we could have been born in any time, but we're born in the time that God has gave us now. And I always say, what's my ROI? What's my return on investment to the Lord? With all that he has given me, I am no fool. I'm no fool. And I'm saying, okay, what can I give God what he's given me? So I'm going to be reminded of the people who've come before us to lay down the groundwork, because in this Morality Moves, I always want to be reminded of what they've done. Because if they have done that with more restriction, with less technology advances, and they got that done, that's an example to us we've given so much. So one of the people I'm going to talk about is A. Philip Randolph. And as I was listening, I was talking about certain people. So I wanted to continue talking about that. A. Philip Randolph. And you might say, who was A. Philip Randolph? He was one of the architects of the March on Washington. But he was an individual that many people perhaps are not aware of. But A. Philip Randolph, he met with 3 Pullman porters that asked him for help against unjust work practices on the railroad stations, on the train lines. And that's when everyone was called George, and they were called Pullman porters. And Pullman porters were hired to work on the railroad as porters that slept on the cars after the American Civil War. So this was after the American Civil War. So let me paint that picture. And George Pullman, that's where they got the word Pullman porters. He's the one who sought out former slaves to work on his sleeping cars, to work on these cars. And this was people going back and forth on the train, right? And, people traveling. So these would be all African-American former slaves after the Civil War. They would be the person outside carrying the suitcase. And they were called George. Hence the name George Pullman was the name of the railroad, so they were all called George. George, come here, George, come here. So you didn't have the benefit of your name. And they worked long hours, you can only imagine. And again, A. Philip Randolph, he was going to represent them because they had terrible work conditions. And what were these terrible work conditions? They had to, of course, lug the bags, lug the cars, lug all the baggages, shine the shoes, clean, serve the passengers, everything that you think domestically they had to do on the train. And it was also contingent on them working and getting paid. So if they didn't put a lot of the hours in, they wouldn't get as much money back. And so in that time, it was very difficult conditions, right? Difficult conditions. However, they realized that they had a voice, that they couldn't want to continue doing this. And Ed Nixon, he was one of the individuals that reached out to Philip Randolph to say, hey, we need to come together and get better working conditions. So these were individuals who at the time still didn't have many rights. However, they came together and they got together and organized the 1925 Brotherhood of Sleeping Cars. Brotherhood of Sleeping Cars. And what were some of these terrible work conditions? They had to work 24-hour job. They slept 1 or 2 hours in the day. They slept sitting upon a smoke room, and they had to be buzzed throughout the day. So it was really difficult working conditions. However, they rose up against that with A. Philip Randolph assisting them to organize. And why did I bring that up? Because here was the problem. People at that time, when you feel you didn't have as much rights, however, they did not look at that. They still said, you know what, this is wrong. Let us get together. And because they did that, they're able to go forward and do the Brotherhood of Sleeping Cars. And I will still stay in awe of that because they realized that together they were able to unite. And then also too, the maids were able also to unite seeing that example, which is, I think that is amazing. That is definitely amazing. And the power of getting together, uniting, and making sure that everyone's on the same page. So that was A. Philip Randolph. Ida B. Wells. Just a quick review of people. Again, she was named Princess of the Press. And what she did was she refused to leave a segregated train and was forcibly escorted off because she sat in the white section. But she said, I'm going to stay sitting in this white section. And she was forcibly taken off, but she sued and she won her case. She won $500, but then after that, the Supreme Court reversed it. Ida B. Wells was amazing. She had to be, it's never your size, never the size that you have. She had to be less than 5 feet, about 5 feet. However, she was strong and determined. And she was, her parents died very early on, and she was going to be a school teacher, and she decided to take care of her siblings, so she kind of held off a little bit on her career, but she took care of her siblings when her parents died, and she was a very, driven young person. She had friends. One of the things that really catalyzed her into realizing what was wrong and right was the death of her friends that owned, they were black men, and they owned a store across from some white individuals. And this was the 1800s. Sorry if I didn't say that. This was the 1800s. And her friends Calvin and Thomas owned a black grocery store across a white one. And consequently, they were murdered by a mob because they were doing much better than the white individuals. And they were murdered by a mob. And these were Ida B. Wells' friends. So these were Ida B. Wells' friends. And she wrote in the press to boycott. She used as a catalyst to really start talking. And she did journalism. And she was called the Princess of the Press because she used her pen, she used her voice in terms of the newspaper against what was going on. And also, too, she wrote in the press to boycott the segregated streetcars. And I'll say that again. She wrote in the press to boycott the segregated streetcars. So before, this was the 1800s. So this is before Martin Luther King. So I don't know how many people know about that, but economically, she stopped that. She said, hey, we can't sit in these cars. Let's boycott it. And so she was able to do that. She was able to do that with journalism, with the newspaper. And she could have said, I ain't getting involved. She could say that. She could have said, you know what, this is not my fight. This is not my family involved in here. This has nothing to do with me. I could just stay home, raise my children. I do not need to get in this fight. However, she got in the fight. And that's where I say when we see things going on, we have two choices. We always have two. Two choices. Whether we're going to get and involved or not get involved. Get involved or not get involved. And I'm thankful that she did definitely get involved in that. And that was Ida B. Wells. 1890, she did an anti-lynching campaign. Again, Ida B. Wells. She didn't have many people behind her. She had the will and desire because she said this is wrong. And also, so the anti-lynching campaign. And that was very prevalent during those times to be lynched for whatever reason. But she said, you know what, let's do an anti-lynching campaign. Due to her reporting on the U.S. lynching when she was at London, for 2 decades, the South was embarrassed. So due to her reporting, when she moved to London, she talked about the USA lynching. So even when she went to London, because she had to escape from where she was because they were behind her. But even when she went to London, she couldn't be stopped. She still felt she had a responsibility because she remembered her friends who died. And perhaps that could have been the catalyst, or maybe she would have continued. We're not sure. But again, even when she was far away, kind of like Harriet Tubman, when she was secure, when she was free, she still went back. She still tried to do that. And that's what I commend Ida B. Wells, because due to her reporting from London, she was talking about the USA lynching. And for lynchings, and the South was embarrassed. So she kept highlighting. So what are we highlighting? Right? What are we highlighting now? What are we highlighting in our culture, right? That's just wrong, right? That's just immoral. This has nothing to do with economics. It's just wrong, right? And what are we doing now? And also too, because Ida B. Wells, and this is the 1800s, almost the 1900s, the black pastors did not support her because she was a woman. So she had 2 battles, racism and sexism. However, she was uncompromising, which is amazing. That's why I have to bring up Ida B. Wells still. I still have to be reminded of Ida B. Wells. And I still want to remind us of people who behind the scenes, no camera, no mic, but the princess of the press. And many black women journalists really revere Ida B. Wells because she took that stand. And she was uncompromising. She had to fight racism, but also sexism with the pastors, the black pastors at the time, or black men at the time. And did you also know that in 1909 she was one of the founders of the NAAC? She was one of the founders there. I didn't know that. And she continued to be a gallant fight for our men and women, and the heritage for our young people, and we should be very proud of her. And that's Ida B. Wells. And I just think that's so fitting. And I'm also be reminded with Morality Moves, because they did something about it. And when I read those about Ida B. Wells, I like to remind the listeners and the viewers, but also to remind myself that in the darkness of time, there were always individuals that stood out with the light. And it cost them something. She had to move from her town when she started writing about them because they wanted to kill her. So she had to move. But however, she was uncompromising. So are we uncompromising, or are you uncompromising? Are you compromised? Are you uncompromising, or do you compromise? Which of the two? Right? Which of the two? And as Christians, right, we have to always push back the works of darkness. However way God has given you the ability to push back the works of darkness, but not to be silenced. Even if you say, Jackie, this is not my fight, but your silence is acquiescing. It's agreeing to it, it's prolonging it. It's like seeing a fight, 2 people going at it, or seeing something go wrong and you just walk the other way. You saw it. If you saw it, we should do something about it. So how are we uncompromising? I just sit back and look And I know that the church will start stepping up and stepping out, because we still are, like Martin Luther King says, that the church is the headlight. That was Martin Luther King. The church should be the headlight, not the tail light. No, that was Martin Luther King, what, 1950s, 1960s, right? He died in 1968. So that was him, that the church should always be the headlight and not the tail light. And when he went to the church, it's the civil rights movement started in the church. So that's still an example to us in the church, how we still should be involved in the things that and things of society. He also said that we should be the thermostat and not the thermometer. Now, Martin Luther King said that. Now, what's a thermostat? Thermostat regulates the temp. Thermostat should more help control the temperature, control the environment, as opposed to a thermometer, which reads it. That's all it does. It reads it. It just takes information from that. It reads it. But a thermostat, it helps to transform it. And you might say, Jacqueline, I got a lot of things going on. I got a lot of things going on. But we are still in this world. We're still in this time. And we owe it. Those who know should do. We still owe it to the next generation to make sure that we are helping keep this house clean for the next generation. Help keep this house clean for the next generation. And our silence, again, is just acquiescing, just agreeing to what things are transpiring. I cannot sit back. I'm just sometimes appalled at when you go to the store and you see the Sports Illustrated magazines, or you see all these magazines that are just becoming more and more sexually explicit, or some of the titles. You don't see people standing up and saying, I don't want this here. I don't approve of this. Or young people passing by. There should be more a call against that. Should be much more a call against that. Or also, too, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, just the pervasiveness of the music. And I have a music to talk about, which you might think I already might talk about. But there's no outcry about what's transpiring. I'm saddened to see. I remember when I used to watch the BET Awards. I'm not going to give my age. A lady never gives her age, right, Pastor Hobbs? I don't think so. But, but you're going to figure this out, though. But I remember I was watching the BET Awards back in the day with Michael Jackson, and when he did the moonwalk. I think it was the BET Awards, something, or some type of Grammy Awards. So that's way back in the day. And you can always watch the awards together with your family. Oh my goodness, there was something to see. You always want to do the moonwalk. You want to get that Thriller jacket. I had a sweater on, looked like the Thriller sweater the other day. It was blinging. My husband was like, oh my goodness, he could see me in the store. But it was fun, right? It was fun back in the day with the Thriller jackets or the BET jackets, or it was just clean. Or with Donna Summer, and I remember sitting around with my family just watching that with popcorn, and you couldn't wait till Jackson 5 comes out, and it was clean. But watch the BET Awards a couple weeks ago. You watch that now. We can do a study to compare and contrast. Look at that now. What's transpiring? Can you sit down and you wonder why the children are the way they are? We are to blame because of that. Our silence is to blame because of that. You watch the music. I have to go back to the BET Awards, Black Entertainment Television. It's no longer owned by. It's no longer black owned. It hasn't been black owned for many years. It's Viacom that does that. But have you seen the BET Awards? But. Right, Pastor Thompson, and I watch it because I need to talk about it, not because I want to watch that. If you see the degradation and the pervasiveness and the lack of clothes and the gyrating and the drop it like it's hot and all this, and not in one, but all of them, and they're all like, that's what they're doing. Going down on fours, wearing clothes, pantyhose. I have never seen people go out wearing underwear. Is that a thing? And the music, right? And that is what and this is music. This is what we're agreeing to. And did I hear anything afterwards? Did I hear the organization speaking up against that, or black organizations saying this is not how we want to depict our young women? And there's this young actress, young singer, beautiful voice, Chloe, and I couldn't believe that. She started off singing so proper, and it's not her, it's always the industry. It's never the individual, it's always the money behind that. And I would attest that many times the artists that are singing that, they don't want to sing that. I really don't want to sing that, but it's the money behind that. The money behind that. But to give you an example of Chloe, she was singing this beautiful song, beautiful voice, and she got on top of a man wearing no clothes, and you could only imagine in daytime. And I'm like, if I was there, I would have grabbed her and put her clothes on. I would have nicely just said, young lady, you don't have to do this, and put some jacket on her and tell that man to go sit somewhere else. That's what I would have done. And I would have probably been arrested, But I can't sit still. But everyone just applauding that perversion. And then we wonder why our children are acting the way they are. Music is one of the most important things, I think, of our generation that we could enjoy. But what are we allowed? We allowed the devil just to come and but read the lyrics. The number one lyrics are all perverted. You read them. You can't even hear it, right? And the F word and the S word and all. I'm like, what in the wild world of sports? And it's silent. And everyone is just like, oh, wow, I guess that's art. That ain't art. That's trash. That's perversion. That is not art. That's trash. And you know what? That is one of the perversions of our time, because it's what our children keep digesting. So that is one of the things that I'm going to talk about, saying we need to put a standard against that. Not only that, but just women wearing less and less clothing, harder for the young men too. That's not fair. Women, it is how you look. It is how you look and how you dress. And I don't know why these older women not telling these younger women what in the wild world of sports some of these young women are going out, and giving them a chance to grow up. So that's one of the things of our time that we need to stand up against. How do you stand up against that? When you hear it on the radio station, call against that. Say, this is not what we want for our children. When you see BET doing that stuff, call and against that. Say, we don't want this for our children. I don't know if we remember the time, but the football game, when it was halftime, it was Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, the artist. It was during the Super Bowl a couple years back. And they were dancing with a strip pole for halftime. I said, look where we have a strip pole for halftime. They were both up and down for a strip pole halftime. And I'm like, and yes, there was complaints against that. Thank God. The FCC had over 2,000 complaints against that. Should have been more, probably much more, but it takes time for people to call. Against that perversion. This is halftime. This is when the kids are watching, and you're gonna get, and to work to be on top of a strip pole, you know how you got to be dressed, because you can't have a lot of clothes up and down on that. You imagine that? You imagine that? And anytime any talks about that, oh, probably not that much. So the silence, and again, it is not from the world that I expect, but it's from the church, that we should say, this is not how we behave in society. This is how we behave in society. So that was one example. So I would say that we have a responsibility to keep on saying what's right, saying what's wrong at that moment, because it's the little ones behind us that we got to give them a chance to live in a world that is less, that is not as perverse, that is not as decadent, that's not as deteriorating as quickly. It's going to deteriorate, but don't have to be that fast. It does not ever have to be that fast. It doesn't have to be. And we know everything else when you leave it alone. God has given us a brain, a mind. You see your car going in a little bit. If you don't handle your car and the repairs, what's going to happen? Oh, okay. Those who are homeowners, if you don't take care of the boiler, take care of the roof, what's going to happen? Oh, so you think the world's just going to do like it's going to do without Christians going up and cleaning it. God still has us here. We still have to be the salt and light in the school, in entertainment, and say, I ain't going to buy this junk, and neither should you. But you don't hear that. So those are one of the things to say, that we still have the right to say, this is wrong, and this is what, and I ain't going to do this, and be vocal about it. And I'm going to talk to you again also too, well, we know about Mandela. I just want to keep us reminding of people that paid the sacrifice for what they thought was wrong at the time, that they gave it all, that they thought was wrong. So I digress. I say, and I got to remind us that we got to still stand and say when something's wrong. But Mandela, for 18 years, he was given a hatchet and a ball to crack rocks. Well, we know what happened with Mandela, the price of Mandela, what he did for his country to fight against apartheid, which was extreme, fight against apartheid. And for 18 years, he was given a hatchet and a ball to crack rocks. That's why when a former late pastor, Miles Monroe, shook his hand, it was really hard. Miles Monroe passed. He died. He was a pastor. He died in 2014, 2014 of a plane accident. But he was able to shake the hand of Mandela. He just wanted to shake his hand. And when he shook his hand was really hard. And he asked him, why is your hand so hard? He said, because for 18 years, he was given a hatchet and a ball to crack rocks. But he knew that was the price of freedom. He knew that was the price of freedom. And then Miles Monroe said, "Oh Lord, make my hands hard to pay the price of greatness." He said, "Oh Lord, make my hands hard to pay the price for greatness." Pay the price for greatness. So my dad used to always say, nothing good comes easy. So what's your hard? What's your wrong that you need to fix? Or that you see that you need to do. I always go, and this time I go is to always remind the body of Christ that you need to say, not just, oh, my head when you're talking at home, oh, this is wrong. No, you need to do and visibly show that something's wrong. It could be easy as the Sports Illustrated magazine say, I don't want this in this store. I don't want this in this store. Or if you see sometimes the Vogue or sometimes some other magazines that are just so sexually pervasive, sexually perverted, say, I do not want this in this store. And if many more people do that, it'll be very, very different. Why is it that cigarette smoking, right, you no longer have it available, cigarette, because cigarette's bad for your health. Everybody knows that. Cigarette's bad for your health. Everyone knows that it's bad for your health, cigarette smoking. It was in the 60s. It was back in the 60s when they realized that cigarette smoking was bad for your health. They always knew that. You don't see cigarettes available anymore. Why? Because it's bad for your health, right? They know that that's bad for your health. Same thing with the music lyrics. Same thing with sexually explicit. Sports Illustrated should no longer be in. They should not be in stores. Sports Illustrated. If you see some of those things or some of those covers, I don't know why they're still there. Because we just pass along, and then you get kids looking at that. I remember when I was at the deli. I think I spoke with this last month. I was at the deli and I saw Sports Illustrated at the store. Sports Illustrated was next to the deli area. And I'm like, why is this magazine here? I said, can you move that, with the other magazines? It was with other types of other magazines, and it was just very sexually explicit. So I went up and I said, can you move that magazine? And guess what? When I came back, it was gone. I said, what in the world? It was gone. So what I say, I do. What I say, I do. And if many more of us pushed back against that, you wouldn't see a Sports Illustrated in the stores. The same thing with with cigarette smoking. So that was some of the people who stood up, and I think this is what I was saying. There has been studies. If you look at the studies, there is always a correlation between what you. There's a reason why the Lord says in Philippians 4:8, think of the things that are lovely, that are pure, that are of good report. He said, think of these things, right? And he teaches us, I think, in Colossians, what to put on and what to put off, right? Because why? Because we have a soul and it's going to affect us. I was saying this as I was coming in, that in the psychological post, the psych post, there's an article. It says female artists increasingly portrayed with sexually suggestive movements in popular music videos. I'll say that again. It's a mouthful. In the psych post, this was in 2019, an article titled "Female Artists Increasingly Portrayed with Sexually Suggestive Movements in Popular Music Videos." And I think this is what I was holding up and talking about with Nicki Minaj, right? Not Nicki Minaj. This was 2019. And there's data here. And then there's another report, the sexualization of popular music. The sexualization of popular music. This is another article. And if you Google and say, well, Jacqueline, it's just music, you got to get over it, but it's really not. There's really a correlation between let me digress. Of course there's a correlation between what you hear and how you act. If not, they wouldn't spend so much money on advertising, right? They wouldn't spend a dime on advertising if it does not correlate between what you see and what you do. If not, you would not know about McDonald's or Nike, or I can go on, and billboards. Because why? Because what you see, what you constantly see, you want to react or want to respond to. So please let us never get into the mindset that what you keep hearing, keep digesting, you're not going to respond to. So this said, the psych post said, female artists increasingly portray sexually music videos. And why do I say that? To when you see it, call. Tell them, don't tell them not to continuously do that, because it does affect the young children. It does affect the young children. One last thing that I want to talk about is the Church Girl music lyric by Beyonce. Church Girl music lyric by Beyonce. And I printed out the music lyrics, and I suggest you do too. Beyonce, it's not about Beyonce. It's a whole music industry. She needs Jesus, as everyone needs Jesus, and we got to pray for her. But this song, which is very provocative and very provocative, shouldn't be. But it's just not Church Girl. It's all those types of music lyrics. And that's just give you an example of how we should stand up against that. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to always come on the fourth Sunday from 3 to 4 o'clock, and that we will take charge and action against these things, to be very diligent, but also intentional with calling calling the stations when you hear it. You hear that? Call them. Call BET. Tell them we do not want this. Tell them you don't want Church Girl. There's another movie coming out. I saw Honk for Jesus. I cannot believe that. It's rated R. It's coming out Friday or something. I just saw it on TV. Honk for Jesus. I said, and it's rated R. And it's buffooning the church. So those that call the name of Christ, we have to stand up against this. Because why? Because the children behind us are watching that, and we have that responsibility. So thank you so much for hearing me. Thank you for this opportunity. It's always a blessing to be here, and I will see you the next fourth Sunday from 3 to 4. And again, my name is Jacqueline. God bless you, and have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you so much.
For me, lift it up. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Receive my worship, all of my worship. Here's my worship, all of my